In this video, we are going to be talking about levels because there's a little gimmick that is new over in New Genesis that wasn't in Base PSO2. I'll explain what it is. Not only that, this video is to cover the perks and the benefits of just leveling and having levels to this and this. Now, in terms of power leveling and all that, or at least leveling your characters and a guide for that or some sort of progression, that will be its own separate video, but this video will be stressing on levels because of that little new gimmick that is in New Genesis. Depending on what you want to see, you can look in the description for the time skip. Levels are important because it's going to do a number of things. The big three would be your power level, battle power, your equipment that you can use, and then your stats. Other than that, it's a bit different from Base PSO2 in some other games. The big one I need to highlight is skill points, because in most games, or if I had to compare, let me use Base PSO2. In Base PSO2, you get skill points by hitting a certain level. So if you were level 17, guess what? You would have 17 skill points. However, with New Genesis, it's a bit different, and this goes into a separate video talking about skill points and cocoons and towers and all that. But if I go over here and if I wanted to assign points, let's say if I go to Techer, you can see that for Techer I have 20 skill points. But the flip side to this is that my Techer is only at level 11. So if I had to use the usual formula or use PSO2, base PSO2 logic, technically I would have 11 skill points, but this is New Genesis and it's a different gimmick. When it comes to, once again, the level, if you look in the item details and if you look at the equip conditions, instead of having the stats that you need to equip it, you need to hit a certain level. So if I wanted to equip this 2-star Sylvia Knuckle, I need to be at level 4. Currently, in the parentheses, I am at level 17. To equip this one, I would need to be at level 15. And if I go to some other equipment, the requirement will range from level 1 all the way up to level 15. So Jade Swords, for example, you can see that it's like that. This 4-star, for example, from NGS, it requires me to be level 14. This Twin Dagger requires me to be level 8 to equip it. There's still some basic things, like you still need to have the certain class to use the photon actions, and also you want to be in the certain class so you can equip said weapons and well, not units, just weapons. And most likely on the screen, you'll see that one of my replays or one of my recordings will show a character that is leveling up, like they were at a certain level. Then when they level up, they get some skill points, but not skill points. The power level, battle power increase, but not only that, they did get a bit more stats because they leveled up. Pretty much standard stuff when it comes to the perks and benefits of leveling. However, the reason why I want to stress this out is because of the fact that you might bump into red text enemies and you might see a bunch of notice messages saying, hey look, you're fighting against something that you shouldn't fight against and they're getting a buff because of it, or there's something kicking in and you don't want to mess with it. That was not a thing in Base PSO2. It is a thing maybe for some other games, but for Base PSO2, you could technically be like a low level and you fight against something that's 20 plus your levels. But for New Genesis, there's a certain range, and I will talk about it in this point in this video. So, if you see anything with a red text, it is up to you if you want to go ahead and fight this damn thing or run away. My best advice, run away, because you're not going to do the full damage. You're not going to be able to dent it as much because it's going to have all these sort of perks because of whatever system they put in New Genesis. You need to be within 4 levels of its range. So if it was level 15, for example, you had to be level 11 to do a bit of damage against it. If you're not at level 11, then you will most likely have a hard time. And note that this is for your main class. You have to be conscious of your main class level, not your subclass level, your main class level. There will be a bunch of recordings playing right now. Note that I dumbed it down because if I show the entire thing, it's going to make the video longer. I have my Space Marine engage against level 15 enemies. He's level 9 as a ranger. Throughout the fight, you can see that there's going to be a bunch of text popping up with damage, and as you can see, the damage isn't as high. My Space Marine doesn't have a bunch of good equipment, but the thing is, I'm not doing anything to them. Now, I can kill them. It took me a while to kill them. For this group, it took me roughly around 8 to 9 minutes. It's not impossible to kill them, it's just that it's gonna take some time. You can get rewards out of it because in the recording, in the footage, you will see that drops did come to me. I think a capsule dropped, there's a couple gold and a bit of experience. However, it took a while for me to do that, and the question is, do you really want to take that much time to kill one creature when you could do it in a shorter amount of time? So, yeah, you can engage, you can kill them, it's just that it will take some time. Now, to figure out the range, I had to go on different characters and figure out what level is, or what's the ideal level. Now, some people already caught on to it, but I went on Pandora, she's level 10, and she engaged against level 15 enemies, and as you can see, there's still a bunch of red text messages and all that jazz, and it took a while to kill some of those enemies. Then I decided to swap to Zill. Guess what? She's level 11 as a Techer, and she's able to do damage. You don't see a bunch of messages, you don't see defend, you don't see the red text or red color in their name. That means you are good to go. So for the level 15 enemies, I had to be level 11. That's the minimal level requirement for me to just smack them around and do damage. Granted that in the slight footage that you saw, I died because I didn't have as much on Zill. So that is a gimmick that wasn't in base PSO2. You had to be conscious of that because if you just engage something, it's not going to go well. Not only that, you're not going to get as much compared to fighting something that is within your level range. With that out of the way, here's another thing to note, and it's with the fact that this can be said in reverse. We had to be careful as well, because if you exceed a certain level range on certain enemies, they will not be able to give us as much, and this can be seen with the experience. When it comes to drops and gold, that might be a different story, but with experience, you can see a bit of a difference. On this screen, you will see that my Space Marine is gonna go slaughter a bunch of stuff. Right now, he's slaughtering a bunch of monkeys, and they're only at level 1. And guess what? The experience isn't as much. It's only giving me 1 experience. And base PSO2, I feel like the enemies in the level is at a certain fixed number. And depending on the multipliers that you have, like XP boost and all that, that's gonna boost it. But for this, it's like, you gotta be in that certain level range. The enemy has to be in the certain level range to give you the most out of it. Granted that, once again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're farming for capsules, that might be a different story. But in terms of the XP gain, you can see that it's not as big. So another example of this is fighting against that humanoid doll. The one that I am gonna show first is the one in the mountain. He's only at level 5, and you can see that my Space Marine is helping out some player, and then we're killing the mobs around it. But when we finally kill that doll, it gives me XP of 22, which isn't a lot, especially since I'm at level 9. And I need a lot more to go to the next level up. The next footage will be me fighting it at level 15 doll. I did kill it. It took a while, but the thing is, the experience gain isn't as big because of the nerf. So I killed it, I got something out of it, but it took a while for me to do that. That's the trade-off. Then the last footage you will see is me using that same Space Marine going into the laboratory rune area and killing a bunch of, or at least fighting against the mobs there. And you can see that I'm level 9 and these guys are level 12, and I can damage them, and they don't have the red color, the red text. So once I kill them, you can see that the XP gain is better than the previous ones, the previous recordings you saw. So that is something to note. When you go into these different levels, you need to be aware of the enemy level and your level and make sure that you're getting the most out of these runs. You want to make sure that you're within the range. Once you are outside of that range, then you're not going to get the most out of it. So if I were to level, I want to make sure that I'm fighting against enemies close to my level range. But once I start to get away from that, let's say the enemy is at level 5 and I'm level 9, then I'm not going to get as much because I'm higher than them. what I would want to do is go to the next level range or find the next set of enemies and figure out their level range and see if I can damage them and get the most out of them. So if I'm level 9, what I want to do is find enemies that are at level 13 or within the level 9 to 13 range. So you have to be careful with the approach in New Genesis compared to that Base PSO2 because it is a different feel. Once again, there's some games that have incorporated this, but for Phantasy Star Online 2, this is brand new. And I think I will conclude it there. I don't want to go too much into this, and there might be a couple things that I have left out or I still need to experiment, or there might be things that will be added in the future, but that is pretty much the basics when it comes to levels, because guess what? If you want to level up, you need to understand these various concepts or the basics when it comes to just knowing your stuff and knowing how the levels work and why you would want to level, and these little gimmicks that are now in place in New Genesis. Once again, in PSO2, it wasn't a giant limitation. There are some things you had to tackle, but you could easily go to and fro here and there. But compared to New Genesis, it is different because that level range is going to play a factor in how much you are getting. Once again, this is a bit different, especially if you were farming capsules, because they will still drop. It doesn't matter if you're fighting against enemies out of your range. It doesn't matter if you're fighting against enemies that are like below your range. It's gonna drop something because, once again, doing these recordings and these runs, you are getting something. I see a capsule when I kill level 1 enemies at times. I got a capsule when I killed the red enemies that I should avoid. So pretty much that is it. If you have any question, comment, concerns, put it down below. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.